The warning Agenorid. The Vorlek Empire stretched across 17 galactic sectors, encompassing over 12,000 star systems and countless worlds. For millennia, they had expanded outward from their homeworld, conquering or assimilating every civilization they encountered. Their technological prowess was unmatched, their military might unchallenged. Emperor Kraxor, 17th of his dynasty, ruled from the obsidian throne on the capital world of Vorla Prime. His every command carried swiftly to the farthest reaches of his domain. It was during the Empire's expansion into the Orion Spur that their survey vessels discovered the anomaly. Floating in the void between systems, a massive obelisk of unknown origin and composition, perfectly preserved despite showing signs of being billions of years old. The survey team approached with caution, their scanners unable to penetrate its surface or determine its internal structure. High Scholar Vexterra led the examination personally, her six-fingered hands moving with practiced precision over her instruments. Fascinating, she murmured to her assistants. The material appears to exist partially outside our dimensional plane. I've never seen anything like it. Along the obelisk's surface, symbols began to glow as the Vorlek ship approached closer. The ship's translation matrix worked frantically to decode the message, finally rendering it in the Imperial language. This warning. The blue-green world of Sethol 3 is forbidden. Humanity must remain undisturbed. Those who ignore this warning invite their own destruction. When the report reached Emperor Kraxor, he received it with amusement rather than concern. Seated upon his throne crafted from the crystallized remains of conquered worlds, he studied the holographic rendering of the obelisk and its message. Another dead civilization's attempt to protect some primitive pets. He chuckled, his scaled skin rippling with mirth. How many such warnings have we encountered and ignored throughout our expansion? Dozens, and yet here we stand, ascendant while those who left such warnings are dust and memory. Supreme Commander Drazkor, his most trusted military advisor, stood at attention beside the throne. Nevertheless, your radiance, perhaps caution is warranted. The age of the artifact suggests whoever created it possessed technology that may have surpassed even our own. The Emperor waved a dismissive hand. Precisely why we must investigate this Earth and its humanity. If there are technologies or resources to be harvested, we cannot afford to leave them untapped. Prepare an expeditionary force. As you command, Drazkor replied, bowing deeply before departing to carry out his orders. Within days, a battle group of 30 vessels, led by the dreadnought Inevitable Dominion, departed for the Sol system. Commander Vexlor, a decorated veteran of 100 campaigns, led the mission with clear instructions. Assess the planet Earth, determine the threat level of its inhabitants, and prepare for resource extraction and potential colonization. The journey to Sol took 17 standard cycles, during which Commander Vexlor reviewed all available data on the mysterious blue-green world. Information was sparse. The planet had never been a priority for Imperial scouts, due to its isolation and unremarkable stellar profile. The few automated probes that had passed through the system reported only standard readings for a life-bearing world. Oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere, abundant water, diverse biosphere, and primitive radio transmissions, suggesting early technological development. Nothing in the reports suggested why such an ominous warning would exist. When the Vorlek fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, they immediately engaged stealth protocols, their advanced cloaking technology rendering them invisible to Earth's primitive detection systems. They established orbit around the system's gas giants first, deploying sensor arrays to gather detailed information about their target. Fascinating, remarked Science Officer Trulka as data streamed into the Inevitable Dominion's command center. The humans appear to have achieved rudimentary spaceflight, but have barely expanded beyond their own moon. Their technological development is erratic, advanced in some areas, primitive in others. Commander Vexlor studied the holographic representation of Earth's cities, transportation networks, and energy grids. Assessment: pre-unification civilization. Commander: multiple nation-states, competing ideologies, fragmented military forces, no planetary defense system, no energy shields, minimal orbital presence. They would not detect our arrival unless we wished it, and could offer no meaningful resistance. Vexilor's facial tentacles curled in satisfaction. Prepare landing parties for specimen collection. We'll begin with covered operations, small teams, various collection points. I want a diverse sampling of their species for study before we make our presence known. The first abduction teams departed that same rotation, cloaked shuttles descending through Earth's atmosphere under cover of darkness. They targeted isolated locations: a farm in the American Midwest, a fishing village in Japan, a research station in Antarctica, a mining outpost in Australia. In each location, the Vorlak soldiers moved with precision, stunning humans and bringing them aboard for study. The operation proceeded flawlessly for the first 24 Earth hours. Then the anomalies began. It started with communication disruptions. Extraction teams reported strange interference, their signals becoming garbled or lost entirely for brief periods. Then came equipment malfunctions, weapons powering down inexplicably, cloaking fields flickering, navigation systems displaying impossible readings. Most disturbing were the reports from the soldiers themselves. Many described an unsettling sensation of being watched, even in empty areas. Others reported hearing whispers in unknown languages. 3 soldiers on separate missions claimed to have seen their own reflections move independently in polished surfaces. Aboard the inevitable Dominion, the first human specimens were proving equally perplexing. Despite appearing physically unremarkable, bipedal mammals with limited strength and endurance, their brain scans showed unusual patterns that the Vorlak scientists struggled to interpret. There's something strange about their neural activity, Science Officer Trelke reported, displaying a holographic model of a human brain with numerous highlighted regions. These areas show activity that doesn't correspond to any known cognitive function. It's as if parts of their brains are doing something we can't detect or understand. Commander Vexilor frowned, his unease growing. Could it be a response to captivity? A defense mechanism, perhaps? Unlikely, Commander. The patterns are consistent across all specimens, regardless of their emotional state. And there's more. Their genetic structure contains sequences that appear to be dormant, but incredibly complex, almost like locked code. Before Vexilor could respond, the ship's alarm system activated. "Commander, to the bridge immediately," came the urgent voice of his second-in-command. When Vexilor arrived, he found the bridge crew in a state of controlled panic. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, we've lost contact with all ground teams," his second replied, voice tight. "And there's something happening on the planet's surface." The main view screen displayed Earth, appearing normal at first glance. But as Vexilor watched, he noticed strange patterns of light emerging, not from cities or human infrastructure, but from seemingly empty regions. Deserts, mountain ranges, ocean floors. The lights formed intricate geometric patterns that pulsed in perfect synchronization. "What am I seeing?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known human technology. In fact, they don't match any technology in our database. And they're growing stronger." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently, warning systems blaring across the bridge. "We're being scanned," shouted the sensor officer. Massive energy surge directed at all Vorlak vessels simultaneously. Vexilor's training took over. Battle stations, raise shields to maximum. Prepare defensive. He never finished the command. The view screen flickered, and instead of Earth, it displayed a human face, a woman with dark skin and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. "You were warned," she said simply, her voice somehow transmitting clearly despite the impossibility of such communication. "The obelisk was placed for your protection, not ours." Vexilor found himself unable to look away from those eyes that seemed to see through him, into him, beyond him. "Who are you?" he managed to ask. The woman's expression remained impassive. "We are humanity. We are the guardians. We are the ones who were placed here to ensure certain powers remained contained." A slight, sad smile crossed her face. "And you have just awakened what should have remained sleeping." Throughout the Vorlek fleet, every system simultaneously failed. Screens went dark, engines shut down, life support sputtered and died. In the darkness of the inevitable Dominion's bridge, Commander Vexlor could only watch as Earth began to change before his eyes. The planet's surface appeared to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. The geometric light patterns expanded, connecting into a global network that enveloped the entire world. And then, slowly, something vast and incomprehensible began to emerge from the planet itself. Not a weapon or a ship, but a presence that somehow registered on both the ship's failing sensors and on some deeper, more primitive part of the Vorlak mind. As consciousness began to fade, the last thing Vexlor heard was the woman's voice, now tinged with genuine regret. "You should have heeded the warning." The Riti Keoning. Emperor Kraxazor was in the midst of a diplomatic reception when the distress signal from the Earth expedition finally reached Vorla Prime. The transmission was fragmented, degraded, barely comprehensible, but the fear in Commander Vexlor's voice came through clearly. "Not what we thought. The planet itself is alive. Some kind of prison. Humans are not the prisoners. Cannot escape. They're inside our minds now. The warning was real. Do not send. Repeat do not." The transmission ended with a sound that would haunt the Emperor's dreams, a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate at a frequency that made the very atoms of his body tremble in sympathetic response. Within moments, Imperial intelligence confirmed the worst. The entire expeditionary force, 30 ships, over 20,000 personnel, had gone silent. Long-range scanners detected massive energy disturbances in the Sol system, unlike anything ever recorded in Imperial history. The Emperor immediately convened his high command in the war chamber, a secure facility deep beneath the Imperial palace. The atmosphere was tense, the usual confidence of his military leaders replaced by uneasy silence as they reviewed the limited data available. "What exactly are we facing?" the Emperor demanded, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. Fleet Admiral Jex Mar, his oldest and most experienced commander, spoke carefully. "Unknown, Your Radiance. The energy readings suggest technology far beyond our current understanding. Whatever has happened to our expedition, it was total. No survivors, no retreating vessels, nothing but silence." "And now?" the Emperor pressed. A junior officer stepped forward, visibly nervous. "Your Radiance, long-range observation posts have detected movement within the Sol system. Multiple objects departing Earth's orbit at velocities that should be impossible without generating spatial distortions we could detect." Supreme Commander Draskor's voice was grave. "They're coming." The Emperor's decision was swift. "Dispatch the 7th and 3rd Fleets to establish a defensive perimeter. I want a containment field around the entire sector. Nothing gets through. Nothing." The Imperial response was impressive in its speed and scale. Within days, over 500 warships had formed a blockade at strategic hyperspace junctures leading from the Sol sector toward the heart of the Empire. Advanced sensor platforms monitored every approach, while automated defense systems stood ready to annihilate any unauthorized vessel. For 3 tense weeks they waited. Then, without warning, the sensors went blind. Not damaged, not destroyed. They simply stopped perceiving anything within a vast spherical region of space. It was as if a bubble of nothingness had formed, expanding outward at an impossible rate. Inside the command ship Imperial Ascendancy, Admiral Jex Mard watched in horror as the phenomenon approached. "All vessels, evasive maneuvers, fire all weapons into the anomaly." The combined firepower of the Imperial blockade, enough energy to shatter planets, disappeared into the advancing void without effect. When the edge of the phenomenon reached the first line of defense, the ships didn't explode or break apart. They simply ceased to exist, erased so completely that not even debris remained. On Vorla Prime, the Emperor watched the real-time strategic display as, one by one, the indicators representing his ships winked out. His finest fleet, the culmination of millennia of Vorlak military development, was being unmade before his eyes. "Your Radiance," his chief scientist whispered, "we must consider the possibility that we have encountered a civilization significantly more advanced than our own." Before the Emperor could respond, the palace communication system activated independently. On every screen, on every holographic projector throughout the imperial capital, the same image appeared: a human man, elderly by their standards, with pale skin and eyes that reflected the depths of space. "I am Professor David Marshall, representing the Terran Guardian Council," the human said, his voice calm and measured, as if discussing something trivial rather than the annihilation of an imperial fleet. "Your invasion force violated the warning that was placed for your benefit. That warning has stood for over 50 million years, placed by those who came before, those who understood what Earth truly is." Marshall's expression grew solemn. "Humanity was not evolved by chance. We were engineered, designed by an ancient race you would call the precursors. Not as servants or warriors, but as caretakers. Earth is not merely our homeworld. It is a containment facility, a prison for something that predates the current universe, something that cannot be destroyed, only contained." The Emperor found his voice, speaking directly to the projection, though he had no idea if the human could hear him. "What gives you the right to destroy my ships, to threaten my empire?" To his surprise, Marshall responded directly. "We don't wish to destroy anything, Emperor Kraxazor. But when your forces abducted humans, they created tiny fractures in the containment system. The entity imprisoned on Earth sensed the opportunity and reached out." Marshall's eyes seemed to look directly into the Emperor's soul. "You didn't just attack humans, Emperor. You disturbed something ancient and hungry that has waited eons for such a mistake. What destroyed your fleet wasn't us. It was a mere fragment of the entity, a tendril that escaped through the cracks your soldiers created." Images appeared beside Marshall, recordings from Vorlak ships as they encountered the void. But from this new perspective, the Emperor could see what his sensors could not. Within the nothingness was a shape, a pattern, a presence of such alien geometry that his mind struggled to comprehend it. "We are in pursuit," Marshall continued. "The Guardian Council has deployed our full capabilities to recapture and contain this fragment before it can grow stronger by consuming more of your empire. But we need your cooperation." For the first time in his long rule, Emperor Kraxazor felt genuine fear. "What do you want from us?" "Evacuation of all systems within this region," Marshall replied. A tactical map appearing to highlight dozens of star systems. "Clear them completely. What we're hunting does not distinguish between species. It consumes all sentient life, using consciousness itself as fuel." The Emperor's advisors erupted in protest. The highlighted region contained major Vorlak colonies, military installations, and critical resource worlds. Abandoning them would be an economic and strategic disaster. Marshall waited patiently for the uproar to subside. "This is not a negotiation, Emperor. The evacuation has already begun. Our ships are extracting your people as we speak. They will be returned safely once the threat is contained." Indeed, reports were flooding in from the affected systems. Massive Earth vessels had appeared in orbit around every world, using some unknown technology to transport entire populations instantly. There was no violence, no conquest, just the methodical emptying of planets ahead of the advancing void. "Who are you people?" the Emperor whispered, his worldview collapsing around him. "What are you?" Marshall's expression softened slightly. "We are what necessity made us. A species designed to balance between dimensions, to maintain the walls between what is and what must never be. For millennia, we lived in ignorance of our purpose, developing naturally, fighting our petty wars, advancing our small technologies. But when your ships came and took our people, They triggered dormant systems, awakened sleeping guardians. He paused, genuine regret crossing his features. We never wanted this role. But now that we are awakened, we must fulfill our function. The containment has been breached, and only we can repair it. The pursuit lasted 17 days. 17 days during which the Emperor watched helplessly as Earthships, vessels that seemed to bend reality itself around them, tracked the entity across his space. The void fragment consumed 3 uninhabited systems before the humans finally cornered it in the Nix Nebula, a vast cloud of interstellar dust and gas at the Empire's outer rim. What happened there defied description in any Vorlak language. The battle, if such it could be called, warped space-time itself. Stars blinked out and were reborn. Matter transformed into energy and back again in impossible patterns. At the center of it all were the human vessels, their hulls glowing with symbols identical to those on the ancient obelisk, channeling energies that bypassed the normal laws of physics. When it was over, when the sensors could once again perceive the nebula, the entity was gone. The human vessels remained, surrounding a small geometric object that pulsed with contained power, a new prison, a smaller version of Earth itself. Professor Marshall appeared once more on the Imperial Communications Network. The fragment has been contained. Your evacuated citizens will be returned within the week. The affected region will be habitable again within a year. The Emperor, watching from his throne room, found himself speechless before this power that had so casually humbled his empire. "And what happens now?" he finally asked. "Now we return to Earth and strengthen the primary containment," Marshall replied. "And you, Emperor Kraxor, will construct a new warning. Not just an obelisk this time, but a message to be spread to every corner of the galaxy. Earth is not to be disturbed. Humanity is not to be provoked. Not for your sake, but for all life everywhere." As the human's image faded, the Emperor of the mighty Vorlak Empire, conquerors of 12,000 worlds, gave the order to begin construction of the warning beacons. They would be placed at every approach to the Sol system, broadcasting in all known languages and frequencies. Beyond this point lies Earth, prison of the ke void be2en worlds. Its guardians, humanity, stand eternal watg. All who value existence turn basic. And for the first time in recorded history, the great powers of the galaxy listened to a warning and stayed away. On Earth, life continued much as it always had. Most humans remained blissfully unaware of their true nature, of the power that slumbered in their DNA, of the ancient evil contained beneath their feet. The Guardian Council returned to their hidden facilities, maintaining their vigil, watching the stars for the next foolish civilization that might ignore the warnings. Professor David Marshall stood on his porch in rural Maine, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. His physical body showed no sign of the energies he had channeled, of the vast powers he had helped direct. To any observer, he was just an old man enjoying a peaceful morning. His phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Hannah Rees at the Guardian Council headquarters. Containment stable. Entity dormant. New security protocols in place. David smiled slightly and put the phone away. The universe had learned its lesson, at least for now. Humanity would be left alone to develop at its own pace, to live and love and fight and create, never knowing how close they had come to cosmic horror. And that, he reflected, taking another sip of coffee, was exactly as it should be. Until the next warning was ignored.